The truth has finally hit me like a slap in the face. Owen lacks both responsibility and compassion. It's become undeniable, and I've reached my breaking point. I've made my decision. I'll stay in this house with my parents, and Owen will need to leave. 4 years. I've carried the weight of this relationship on my shoulders, and despite my sacrifices, despite the $4,000 I shell out each month for rent, he's now trying to push me out of my own home. Enough is enough. I've been thinking about divorce for months now, wrestling with the idea in silence, but his selfishness and dismissiveness have cemented my resolve. The last straw was when I told him, "I'll leave, yes, but for now, you need to go." His response? A shrug and a careless, "Fine, I'll be out tonight. Just make sure you're gone by tomorrow." The audacity. "You don't even care to ask what I'm taking with me?" I demanded. He barely looked up, replying, "Don't touch my equipment. Do whatever you want with the rest." I was left speechless, but more than that, I felt a surge of clarity. If he's giving me free rein to deal with everything, then I'm going to take advantage of it. Maybe this is the moment he needs to finally feel the consequences of his actions. I'm already planning. If I have to hire movers to take everything I care about, so be it. It's time Owen learns that choices have weight. Let me give you some context. I'm 31, educated, stable, and successful. I work at a well-known company, and I'm financially secure enough to afford an apartment that costs me $4,000 a month. On paper, everything looks perfect: a good job, a nice home, a family. I have a husband, Owen, and a son, Sam, but behind closed doors, it's a different story. That rent, despite my salary, is suffocating. The real issue? Owen, at 32, he's still chasing a music career that's going nowhere, leaving me to pick up the slack. At first, I admired his ambition. His passion for music inspired me, and I supported him, hoping one day he'd make it big. He performed at small venues, lived for the thrill of the music, but that was years ago. Now, his part-time jobs don't even cover the bills, and his dream feels like a hollow fantasy. Meanwhile, I'm left paying for everything, managing all the stress. When I voiced my concerns, Owen simply brushed them off. "You sound like an old woman," he'd mock. "I'm not complaining, I'm stating facts." I tried, I really did, but patience has its limits, and mine has run out. I've been carrying this family on my own for too long. Owen's refusal to change, his dismissal of reality, it's become too much to bear. The idea of divorce has evolved into the solution I deserve. A life without the constant worry of rent, without the ridicule for speaking the truth. Sam and I deserve better. It's time to prioritize my own well-being and let go of a marriage that's been holding me back. I once believed in Owen's potential. I believed in his dreams when we were younger. When I got pregnant, he promised to work hard for our future. We got married when I was 20, and I thought that once we started a family, he would let go of his music career to build a life with us. I even felt guilty for questioning him, for not fully supporting his dreams. But after Sam was born, nothing changed. Owen continued to chase his music, working part-time jobs, acting as though his only responsibility was to himself. It broke me. I finally confronted him, no longer able to stay silent. "How long are you going to keep working part-time? You're almost 32. People your age are building careers." His response? "I have my own way of living. Don't compare me to others." I was furious. "Your way of living means nothing if you're not contributing. It's time to help with the bills." "When I become famous," he said, almost defiantly, "I'll make up for everything." "Stop dreaming," I snapped, my voice sharp. "It's time to face reality." He had no answer. Eventually, he begrudgingly took on another part-time job, but it didn't solve anything. Owen continued to talk about his dreams, while I struggled to make ends meet. "Don't be so noisy," he'd say, his voice dismissive. "There are plenty of ways to succeed without signing with an agency. I'm making progress, even if it's slow." It was exhausting. His band had broken up years ago. His old bandmates had moved on. Some were married, others had steady jobs. But Owen? He clung to the past like a lifeline. He called letting go of dreams pathetic. But I saw it differently. Sacrificing a dream to support your family is not pathetic, it's responsible. Isn't that the point? When I was pregnant, Owen promised to work hard for our child, but what he meant was, he'd keep working hard at his music career. I kept hoping he'd change, but now I see, he never will. "Did you really buy more expensive clothes?" I asked him one night, my frustration bubbling over. "Looking good is important for my job," he responded, as though that was an explanation. His job, his dreams, his excuses, they don't matter anymore. I'm done. It's time to start over. To rebuild a life of stability and happiness for Sam and me, without Owen's weight holding us down. And then there's the money. Owen hasn't made a single dollar from his music career, yet he talks as if he's already a star. It's been 11 years since Sam was born, and Owen is still working part-time jobs. At nearly 32, he's spent more than a decade chasing dreams that have yet to come true. Meanwhile, he continues to spend money on fancy clothes and music equipment, while I struggle to make ends meet. I wish you'd stop spending on those things and help with the household bills, I told him one day. You can't satisfy hunger with pretense, he shot back. It's always like this, his attitude, his refusal to engage. We try to discuss things privately, away from Sam, but in this cramped apartment, it's impossible not to be overheard. Sam often hears us arguing, and that's why we've talked about moving to a bigger place, but when I suggested it, Owen didn't seem to care. Should we move? I asked. Yeah, this place was yours before we got married, right? He responded carelessly. You lived here alone. Do you have a problem with that? I asked, a little sharp. No, but a high-rise condo would be cool, he shrugged. Who's going to pay for it? I pressed. I'll help with the expenses, he said, like it was a big gesture. You handle the rent, and I'll take care of electricity, gas, and groceries. I was skeptical, but with my salary, it was possible. Maybe this move could be the fresh start we needed. I agreed, hoping it would push Owen to finally step up. A year later, we were in the condo, but nothing had changed. Owen was still chasing his music, still making excuses, and still breaking promises. Hey, the gas bill came, I reminded him one evening. Make sure you pay it before it comes out of my account. I'll give it to you next time, he said dismissively, another empty promise. And just like that, the realization hit me again. This is it, this marriage, this life, I can't keep carrying it all on my own. You always say that, but you never pay, I snapped, frustration bubbling over. Do you think money isn't important? I'm asking for the bare minimum to cover our bills. Why do I have to keep begging you about this? You're the one who turns everything into a drama about money. His dismissive shrug made my blood boil. Owen promised he would help, but every word seemed empty now. Thankfully, I'd taken the initiative to set up direct payments for utilities, so at least we wouldn't have overdue charges. Otherwise, who knows what would have been neglected. Occasionally, I'd find small amounts of cash around the house, like the $100 bill he left on the living room table one day. I almost thought it was his way of trying to show he cared, but when I checked the electricity bill, it was clear that money was just another way for him to soothe his conscience. He hadn't paid his share. I do pay sometimes, don't I? He argued when I confronted him, as if those occasional scraps could somehow justify everything else. Then came one of his usual requests. Can I borrow some money for a trip with my parents? How much do you need? I asked, already knowing it was another one of his lies. 100 should be enough, he said. I handed him the money, but I knew, it wasn't for a trip. It was for his own indulgences, treats for his friends, or maybe another round of pointless music equipment. Meanwhile, I was still stuck paying the $4,000 rent, shouldering everything. I thought moving into this condo would motivate him, but instead, it became just another excuse for him to keep drifting, and I was tired of it. Then came the final straw. Hey, we've got that spare room, he said one evening. I was thinking of clearing it out, making it a space for my parents. I stared at him, stunned. A room for your parents? You're suggesting they move in with us? My parents are getting older, he said, trying to sound noble. We can't just leave them alone. I saw right through him. He talked big, but never followed through. Who did he think was paying the rent? Who was keeping everything running? I already carried the financial burden of the house and our son's education. Adding his parents into the mix was more than I could bear. I'm not doing that, I said firmly. Don't be so quick to judge. Think about it, he urged. I've thought about it, I replied. The answer is no. Why are you being so stubborn? He snapped. What's wrong with taking care of my parents? Are you saying I should just abandon them? You're heartless. To anyone else, I might have seemed cruel, but the issue wasn't his parents, it was him. If they moved in, I knew I'd be the one looking after them, just like I did with everything else. I will not live with your parents, I said, making my stance clear. His face twisted with anger. Fine, I'll stay here with them. You need to leave. I couldn't believe it. After all these years, after I'd carried him, supported him, and paid for everything, he was telling me to leave the house I paid for. Fine, I said, my voice cold and firm. I'll leave. Good. Pack your things and get out quickly. I'll be back tomorrow evening. Make sure you're gone by then. I looked at him, a strange sense of calm washing over me. Are you sure you don't want to check what I might take with me? I asked, my voice biting. Don't touch my equipment. Do whatever you want with the rest, he replied, storming out. As he left, I felt a wave of liberation, but then my 15-year-old son, Sam, emerged from his room. Mom, I'll help you pack. I'll go with you too, he said softly, his voice full of concern. The weight of his words hit me harder than I expected. Sam had always kept his distance when Owen and I fought. He'd retreat to his room, trying to avoid the tension between us. Seeing him offer to help broke my heart. Where do we start, Mom? Sam asked quietly. Start with your own things, I said, my voice trembling. I have something else to handle. I gave him a weak smile. Owen was about to learn the consequences of his behavior. I grabbed my phone and made a call, feeling the weight of what I was about to do. Hello, sorry for the short notice, but could you assist us tomorrow? I asked. Once everything essential was packed, Sam and I left for a business hotel, figuring out our next move. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like the first step toward taking control of our lives. Later that evening, as expected, Owen called. I placed the phone down, exchanged a glance with Sam, and answered. Where are you? What's going on? Owen's voice was frantic. What do you mean? Is something wrong? I asked, keeping my tone calm. My clothes and equipment are still here, but everything else is gone. Where's the table? The fridge? Did you take them? His panic was evident. No, I said, unfazed. I called a junk removal service. By now, it's probably all been disposed of. Sam spoke up from beside me. Owen. There was a long silence on the other end. I could hear his shock. What do you mean, disposed of? He finally asked, his voice trembling. The furniture and appliances are marital property. You told me I could do whatever I wanted with everything except your equipment, so I did, I said coldly. How am I supposed to live now? He yelled. If you need furniture, buy new stuff, I shot back, or use your amp as a chair, and wrap your guitar in a towel for a pillow. That's not funny, he yelled, sounding furious. We're getting a divorce, I said, finally stating what had been true for a long time. Yes, I get it, he replied, trying to sound unaffected. I knew he thought this was just another argument, but I wasn't backing down. Good, I said, we'll finalize everything later. Since you're moving in with your parents, I'll go to the real estate office tomorrow to change the contract. His voice wavered. If you change the contract to my name, the divorce is final. Are you sure about this? He asked, uncertainty creeping in. Yes, I said coldly, putting an end to the discussion. A few days later, we went to the real estate office to finalize the contract changes. I left easily, but Owen was met with the harsh reality of the rent. $4,500 a month, I said flatly. His face went ashen. He had no idea how much the rent was, because he never bothered to ask. He assumed his parents would pick up the slack, but their retirement income made that impossible. You've been paying this much every month? He asked in disbelief. Yes, I replied, and I've been covering everything else, because you never contributed. I can't afford this, he admitted, his pride finally cracking. Of course not, I said, you wouldn't even pass the screening. The real estate agent confirmed this, and Owen fell silent. So, what do I do now? He asked, deflated. If you can't sign the contract, you'll have to leave, I said bluntly. His face flushed with anger and humiliation as he realized he was out of his depth. He left the office, defeated. After the divorce, Owen's world unraveled. When I told his parents, they decided to cut him off. Unable to rely on them, Owen struggled to rent even a small apartment. His freelancing work was too erratic to support him, and at 32, his chances of finding stable employment were slim. Meanwhile, Sam and I found a new apartment, smaller, more affordable, and a fresh start. With a manageable rent, I could finally save for the future, our future. No more waiting for Owen to change. No more endless promises. Just me and my son, moving forward, building a life of stability, and putting our happiness first.